The marble floor gleamed under fluorescent lights, cold and indifferent. Maya Sterling pushed through the glass doors of Sterling Trust Bank, her emerald green blazer catching the afternoon sun that streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows. She carried no briefcase, just her phone and the company ID that hung around her neck on a lanyard. Hidden beneath her blazer, a man in a cobalt blue tie intercepted her at the counter. His nameplate read Derek Hoffman, branch manager. His eyes traveled from her face to her shoes and back again, measuring her in a way that made her skin prickle. "Can I help you?" His tone suggested he'd rather not. "I need access to the vault for an inspection." Maya's voice was even professional. "I'm here to review branch operations." Derek's laugh was sharp and dismissive. "Ma'am, customers don't get vault access. If you'd like to open an account, I'm not a customer." Maya pulled her ID from beneath her blazer, laying it on the counter. "I'm Maya Sterling, CEO." Derek picked up the ID, held it to the light, and smirked. He slid it back across the marble. "This is fake. We get scammers every week trying this exact play." Whispers rippled through the lobby. Phones emerged from pockets and purses, cameras angling toward the counter. Maya felt the heat of attention, the weight of judgment. She kept her hands flat on the counter, steady. "Call corporate," she said quietly. "Verify my identity. I'm not wasting their time on obvious fraud." Derek leaned forward, lowering his voice to a theatrical whisper that carried perfectly. "Leave now or I'm calling the police." Maya's jaw tightened. "I have a board meeting in 3 hours." "At headquarters?" "Where I sit at the head of the table." "Sure you do." Derek straightened, raising his voice for the growing audience. "And I'm the President of the United States." A security guard appeared at Maya's elbow, a young man who wouldn't meet her eyes. Derek nodded toward the door. "Escort her out. She's refused to leave voluntarily." Maya didn't resist as the guard's hand closed around her arm. She looked directly into Derek's eyes, memorizing his face, his posture, his smug certainty. "This conversation isn't over. Identity theft is a felony," Derek announced to the lobby, his voice echoing off marble and glass. "We take fraud seriously at Sterling Trust." The glass doors closed behind her with a soft hiss. Maya stood on the sidewalk, pedestrians flowing around her like water around stone. Above the entrance, carved into granite, her family name gleamed in gold: Sterling Trust Bank, founded 2015. Her phone buzzed. A reminder. Board meeting, 5 p.m. She stared at her reflection in the glass, a black woman in designer clothes, humiliated on the street she'd worked 10 years to own. 6 hours earlier, Maya's penthouse apartment had glowed with dawn light. She stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, coffee in hand, watching the city emerge from darkness. The skyline was a constellation of glass and steel, buildings that housed businesses, dreams, and the quiet desperation of people trying to matter. Sterling Trust Bank occupied 3 floors of the Meridian Tower downtown. Maya could see it from here, a monument to a promise she'd made to herself at 17. Build something that couldn't ignore you. Her father's photograph sat on her desk in a simple wooden frame. Marcus Sterling, wearing his janitor's uniform, smiling at the camera with the kind of dignity that couldn't be stripped away by mops or minimum wage. He'd died 2 months before the bank's grand opening, his heart giving out after 40 years of night shifts and double overtime. "For people like us," Maya had whispered at the ribbon-cutting ceremony, her voice breaking on the last word. She was 38 now, the youngest black woman to own a banking institution in the state. The headlines had celebrated her, from janitor's daughter to CEO, breaking barriers in finance. But Maya had never trusted headlines. She trusted numbers, systems, and the unannounced visits that revealed what her executives tried to hide. Her assistant, Jennifer, had warned her yesterday. "The new downtown branch manager is aggressive about fraud prevention. We've had some complaints." "Good instincts are rare," Maya had replied, distracted by quarterly reports. "That's why I hired him." Now driving toward the downtown branch, Maya scrolled through customer feedback on her tablet. The numbers were stellar. Loan approvals up 12%, customer satisfaction at 91%. But buried in the comments section, phrases jumped out. Felt unwelcome, excessive documentation, treated like a criminal. 3 complaints specifically mentioned the branch manager. Derek Hoffman, hired 6 months ago with impeccable references from a competitor bank. Harvard MBA, 10 years of experience. He'd aced every interview. Maya made a mental note to review his personnel file. But first, she wanted to see the branch in action, unfiltered by advance warning or corporate polish. She parked 3 blocks away and walked, just another customer approaching the golden doors. The irony wasn't lost on her. Her father had been denied entry to places like this, not officially, but through 1,000 small deterrents that made the message clear. She'd built Sterling Trust to be different, to be the bank that saw people instead of profiles. She pulled open the door, stepping into the cool marble lobby. The air smelled like money and air conditioning. Behind the counter, a man in a cobalt blue tie looked up, his eyes scanning her with professional assessment. And just like that, Maya Sterling became just another black woman who didn't belong. Derek Hoffman prided himself on pattern recognition. In 10 years of banking, he'd developed an instinct for fraud. The nervous energy, the too perfect story, the desperation masked as confidence. The woman approaching his counter radiated all 3. Emerald green blazer. Expensive but not designer. No briefcase, no portfolio. And that walk, confident, entitled, like she owned the place. Red flags everywhere, can I help you? He kept his tone professional but distant. I need access to the vault for an inspection. She met his eyes without blinking. I'm here to review branch operations. Derek's laugh escaped before he could stop it. Customers didn't demand vault access. They didn't use phrases like branch operations. They certainly didn't look at him like he was the intruder. Ma'am, customers don't get vault access. He spoke slowly, as if explaining basic concepts to a child. If you'd like to open an account, I can direct you to new accounts. I'm not a customer. She pulled out an ID, laying it on the counter with deliberate precision. I'm Maya Sterling, CEO. Derek picked up the ID, angling it toward the light. Maya Sterling, Chief Executive Officer, Sterling Trust Bank. The photo matched. Same sharp cheekbones, same intense eyes. But the ID was too clean, too new. Scammers were getting better at forgeries. He slid it back across the counter. This is fake. We get scammers every week trying this exact play. Around them, the lobby's ambient noise dropped to whispers. Phones appeared in peripheral vision, black rectangles held at chest height. Derek was aware of being watched, and he welcomed it. Let them see how Sterling Trust handled fraud attempts. The woman, Maya she'd called herself, didn't move. Call corporate, verify my identity. I'm not wasting their time on obvious fraud. Derek lowered his voice, leaning forward so she'd understand the seriousness. Leave now or I'm calling the police. I have a board meeting in 3 hours, she said quietly. At headquarters, where I sit at the head of the table. Derek straightened, raising his voice. The audience deserved a good show. Sure you do. And I'm the President of the United States. Scattered laughter rippled through the lobby. Derek felt validated, righteous. He gestured to Marcus, the security guard. Escort her out. She's refused to leave voluntarily. The woman didn't struggle as Marcus took her arm. But she looked at Derek with an expression that made something cold settle in his stomach. Not fear, not anger, but certainty. This conversation isn't over, she said. Derek needed to reassert control. He raised his voice, projecting to every corner of the marble lobby. Identity theft is a felony. We take fraud seriously at Sterling Trust. A few customers nodded approvingly. An elderly woman clutched her purse tighter. Derek had protected them, protected the bank, protected the system. He watched through the glass as the woman stood on the sidewalk, motionless. Above her head, the bank's name gleamed in afternoon sun. Derek returned to his computer, already composing the incident report. Subject attempted fraud. Escorted from premises. No further action required. His phone buzzed. A calendar reminder. Corporate all-staff meeting, 5 p.m. Mandatory attendance via video conference. He dismissed it and went back to work, certain he'd done the right thing. Maya sat in her car with the engine off, hands gripping the steering wheel until her knuckles ached. The leather was cool beneath her palms, grounding her in something real while her mind spun through disbelief and rage. She'd been underestimated before. Every woman in finance had that experience filed away in memory, a permanent scar that occasionally ached, but never like this. Never by her own employee in her own building, beneath her own name carved in stone. Her phone buzzed with messages. Jennifer asking about the inspection, the board chair confirming tonight's meeting, a reminder about quarterly earnings. Maya ignored them all and opened her security app. Sterling Trust's cloud-based system captured everything. Within seconds, she was watching herself on screen, approaching the counter, presenting ID, being dismissed. Derek's smirk was captured in high definition. The crowd's phones recording her humiliation, visible in the wide-angle shot. She screenshotted everything methodically, her anger crystallizing into something sharper and more useful. Her father's voice echoed in memory. Anger is energy, baby girl. Channel it, don't waste it. Maya switched to archived footage, scrolling back through the past week. And there, yesterday afternoon, Derek at the same counter. An elderly black woman in a lavender dress trying to cash a check. Derek examining it with theatrical suspicion, shaking his head, the woman's shoulders slumping in defeat. Maya's heart pounded. This wasn't a mistake. It was a pattern. She dialed her general counsel, Elizabeth Chen, who answered on the first ring. Maya, how's the inspection? I need the legal team assembled at the downtown branch in 3 hours. Maya's voice was ice over steel. Full litigation support. Bring employment files, customer complaints, and security footage access. Silence. Then what happened? I'll brief everyone on site. Just be there. Maya ended the call and opened her contacts, scrolling to a name she hadn't called in months. Henrietta Cole. The woman from yesterday's footage. The phone rang 4 times before a tired voice answered. Hello? Mrs. Cole, this is Maya Sterling from Sterling Trust Bank. I'm calling about your experience yesterday at our downtown branch. A long pause. They told me my check was suspicious. I've banked there for 5 years. Maya closed her eyes. I'm so sorry. That should never have happened. I thought your bank was different. Mrs. Cole's voice was soft, defeated. I was wrong. The line went dead. Maya sat in silence, staring at her reflection in the darkened phone screen. She'd built Sterling Trust on a foundation of dignity and inclusion. But foundations crumbled when no one maintained them. She'd trusted systems, HR protocols, training programs, quarterly reviews. She'd believed that good intentions, properly documented, would create good outcomes. She'd been wrong. Maya started the engine and pulled into traffic, heading toward headquarters. She had 3 hours to build a case, assemble a team, and prove that she was exactly who she claimed to be. The humiliation still burned. But beneath it, something colder and more dangerous had taken root. Determination. 23 years earlier, Maya was 17 and furious. She sat in the lobby of First National Bank, watching her father smooth his janitor's uniform with nervous hands. He'd saved for 6 months to have enough documentation for a small business loan, a cleaning service, something he could build and pass down. The loan officer was young, white, wearing a suit that cost more than her father's monthly salary. He'd glanced at the application for exactly 12 seconds before sliding it back across the desk. Credit history is insufficient. Collateral is inadequate. Application denied. Her father had nodded, accepting the verdict like weather, inevitable and unchangeable. But Maya had seen the officer's eyes, the way they'd traveled over her father's uniform, and dismissed him before reading a single word. That night, Maya switched her major from education to finance. If the system was designed to exclude people like her father, she'd learn every rule, every loophole, every protection, until she could rewrite the system entirely. 10 years of 80-hour weeks. Analyst positions at firms that tolerated her but never promoted her. An MBA financed through night shifts at 3 different banks, learning operations from the inside. She studied rejection letters like archaeological artifacts, decoding the language of institutional bias. When she finally opened Sterling Trust at 30, she'd built it on one principle: everyone deserves dignity. She hired loan officers who'd been overlooked by traditional banks. She created training programs that taught empathy alongside risk assessment. She measured success not just in profits, but in lives changed, small business loans that became thriving companies, mortgages that became generational wealth. Her father died 2 months before the grand opening, his heart giving out after a double shift. Maya had stood in the empty lobby on opening day, his photograph in her hands, and whispered, "For people like us." But growth demanded scale. 1 branch became 5, then 12. She couldn't interview every hire personally anymore. She trusted HR, trusted the systems she'd built, trusted that good intentions documented in policy manuals would create good outcomes. Derek Hoffman's resume had been perfect. Harvard MBA, a decade of experience, glowing references. He'd aced every interview, quoted the right values, said exactly what the hiring committee wanted to hear. On paper, he was exactly what Sterling Trust needed. Someone who could drive numbers while maintaining culture. Maya had approved his hiring with barely a glance, distracted by acquisition negotiations and regulatory filings. She'd trusted the system. Now pulling into headquarters parking garage, Maya understood the truth. Systems don't protect people. People protect people. And she'd been so focused on growth that she'd stopped protecting the very promise that defined her bank. The stakes weren't just her reputation or her authority. They were Sterling Trust's soul, the idea that a bank could be different, better, more human. If Derek's behavior was tolerated, if patterns of discrimination were dismissed as thorough fraud prevention, then everything she'd built was a lie, wrapped in good intentions. Maya gathered her laptop and phone, heading toward the elevator. Her father's photograph was upstairs in her office, watching over the empire she'd built in his name. She wouldn't let it crumble. Not today, not ever. Maya's office was silent except for the hum of computers and her own breathing. Elizabeth Chen, her general counsel, sat across the desk with 3 laptops open, pulling records as Maya dictated requests. Customer complaints. Downtown branch last 6 months. Files populated on screen. 15 formal complaints. Maya's stomach tightened as she read through them, Elizabeth's fingers flying across keys to cross-reference account data. "This one," Elizabeth said quietly. James Washington, denied a business loan despite 780 credit score. Derek noted insufficient documentation, even though the file contains everything on our checklist. Next, Maya said, her voice flat. Lucia Ramirez, asked to provide 3 forms of ID to cash a paycheck. Account holder for 8 years. Next, Terrence and Aisha Johnson, denied a mortgage pre-approval. Combined income of $180,000. Minimal debt. Derek's notes say high risk with no explanation. Maya pulled up the branch's demographic data. The pattern emerged like a photograph in developing solution. Every complaint involved a Black or Latino customer. Every denial had similar vague language. Insufficient, high risk, suspicious activity. Did HR flag these? Maya asked. Elizabeth nodded grimly. 3 complaints went to HR in April. Derek's supervisor, Linda Martinez, dismissed them as overzealous fraud prevention. She noted his branch has the highest fraud detection rate in the region. Because he sees fraud everywhere, Maya said. But only in certain faces. Elizabeth pulled up another file. Mrs. Henrietta Cole yesterday. She tried to cash a check for $2,500. Derek refused, cited suspected fraud despite her account balance of $314,000. She called corporate this morning to close all her accounts. Maya's hands trembled as she dialed Mrs. Cole's number again. It rang 6 times before going to voicemail. She didn't leave a message. What could she say that would undo the damage? "How many others?" Maya asked. Elizabeth's expression was grim. 7 account holders have called to close accounts in the past 3 hours. Word is spreading. Maya stood and walked to the window. Below the city sprawled in afternoon light, thousands of people making thousands of decisions about where to trust their money. She'd built Sterling Trust on a promise that it would be different, that it would see people as individuals rather than statistics or threats. But Derek had violated that promise every single day for 6 months. And Linda Martinez, regional supervisor, and someone Maya had personally promoted, had enabled it. The betrayal was layered, systematic. It wasn't just one bad hire. It was the infrastructure that protected him, the metrics that rewarded him, the culture that looked the other way because his numbers were good. Maya turned back to Elizabeth. "Assemble the litigation team. I want employment files, every customer interaction, security footage from the past 6 months. We are going back to that branch in 2 hours. Maya," Elizabeth said carefully, "if we're building a termination case, we should do this quietly. HR protocols, documentation, proper procedures. If you go back there today—" "He threw me out of my own bank," Maya interrupted, her voice quiet but absolute. "He humiliated me in front of customers and cameras. And he's been doing worse to people who don't have my resources or power. This ends today." Elizabeth studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "I'll have the team ready in 90 minutes. Maya returned to her desk and opened one more file, the security footage from this afternoon. She watched herself being escorted out, watched Derek's triumphant expression, watched the crowd's phones recording her humiliation. The video had probably already been uploaded somewhere. By tomorrow it would be viral. Black woman claiming to be CEO gets kicked out of bank. The headlines would write themselves, and Sterling Trust's reputation would shatter regardless of the truth, unless she controlled the narrative. Unless she proved publicly and undeniably that the system could correct itself. Maya's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number saw what happened. "I'm a customer at that branch. Derek did the same thing to me last month. I have video. Call me, then another. Is this real? The CEO got kicked out? I'm pulling my accounts." And another. "That manager needs to be fired. Sterling Trust isn't what I thought it was." Maya watched the messages multiply, each one a vote of no confidence in the institution she'd built. The damage was spreading like cracks in ice, and she had maybe hours before everything shattered. She stood straightening her emerald blazer and looked at her father's photograph. His smile was gentle, knowing. He'd taught her that anger was energy, but he'd also taught her that dignity was power. Derek had tried to strip her of both. He'd failed. Maya gathered her laptop and headed for the elevator. The legal team would meet her at the branch. The cameras would be rolling. And this time, when she walked through those golden doors, she'd have proof that couldn't be dismissed or denied. The truth was coming, and it would be undeniable. At 4:47 p.m., Maya Sterling returned to the downtown branch. This time 4 attorneys flanked her, Elizabeth Chen in the lead, carrying a leather portfolio that contained 6 months of documented failure. Through the glass doors, Derek saw them coming. His confident posture wavered, shoulders tensing. He whispered something to a teller, who immediately picked up a phone. Maya pushed through the doors. The lobby fell silent, customers freezing mid-transaction. Every eye tracked her movement across the marble floor, phones emerging from pockets like flowers blooming toward sunlight. "I'm Maya Sterling," she announced, her voice carrying to every corner. "I own this bank. And I'm here to conduct an immediate personnel review. Derek's face drained of color, his cobalt tie suddenly too bright against pale skin. I called corporate. They said you were in a board meeting. I moved it. Maya stopped 3 feet from his counter, close enough to see his pupils dilate. This took priority. Elizabeth stepped forward, laying documents on the marble counter with deliberate precision. Corporate charter. Ownership papers. Maya's identification verified by 3 independent agencies, each stamp and signature visible through the clear protective sleeves. Derek's hands trembled as he reached for the papers, then pulled back as if they might burn him. I was just doing my job, protecting the bank from fraud, by ejecting your CEO. Maya's voice was surgical, precise. Or by profiling customers based on appearance. Employees gathered at the edges of the lobby, tellers abandoning their stations, loan officers emerging from back offices. The air hummed with collective breath held, waiting. Derek tried to recover, his jaw tightening. If this is legitimate, then it's a misunderstanding, a miscommunication. I followed protocol exactly as trained. Maya almost believed he might apologize, almost believed this could end with acknowledgement and correction. Then Derek straightened, his voice gaining an edge of defensiveness. You should have used the VIP entrance, announced yourself properly. How was I supposed to know? The question hung in the air, revealing everything. Not an apology, an accusation. The problem wasn't his action. It was her failure to perform wealth and power in ways he found acceptable. Maya felt Elizabeth tense beside her. Several employees exchanged glances, uncomfortable recognition passing between them. The VIP entrance, Maya repeated softly, dangerously. You think the issue is which door I used? Derek opened his mouth to respond, but movement at the back of the lobby interrupted him. Linda Martinez, regional supervisor, emerged from the manager's office. Maya recognized her immediately. A woman she'd promoted 18 months ago. Someone she'd trusted to maintain culture while driving results. Linda's smile was professionally calibrated, sympathetic but firm. Maya, I'm glad you're here. Let's discuss this in private. Derek's performance metrics are exceptional. Highest fraud detection in the region. Strongest customer retention numbers. We can't afford to make emotional decisions based on one unfortunate incident. The word emotional landed like a slap. Maya stared at Linda, watching her carefully constructed trust crumble into something uglier. The realization that good intentions, documented in policy manuals, meant nothing if the people enforcing them were themselves the problem. Emotional? Maya's voice was quiet, forcing everyone to lean forward to hear. Mrs. Henrietta Cole has $314,000 in this bank. Derek denied her a simple withdrawal yesterday. She's closing her accounts tomorrow. Gasps rippled through the assembled employees. Linda's professional smile flickered, uncertainty crossing her features. One customer, Linda said carefully. Out of thousands. We have to look at overall performance. Maya's phone buzzed. Then buzzed again and again. She glanced at the screen. 7 new messages, all from account holders. All saying the same thing. I'm closing my accounts. Can't trust Sterling Trust anymore. Pulling everything today. She looked up at Linda, at Derek, at the employees watching with phones raised and recording. The damage wasn't theoretical anymore. It was spreading in real time, metastasizing through social media and word of mouth. Everything she'd built was fracturing, and the 2 people responsible stood before her, still defending the indefensible. Elizabeth pulled out a tablet, her fingers swiping across the screen with practiced efficiency. We have security footage from the past 6 months. Would you like to review it here? Or should we move this to a formal hearing? Derek's confidence cracked completely. That's not necessary. I can explain. Yes, Maya interrupted, her voice cutting through his protest. Show it here. Everyone should see this. Elizabeth connected the tablet to the lobby's display screen, normally used for financial advisories and promotional videos. The screen flickered to life, showing Derek at his counter from various angles and dates. April 15th. Derek speaking to an elderly black man, arms crossed, shaking his head dismissively. The man's shoulders slumped as he gathered papers and left May 3rd. A Latina mother with 2 children, trying to open a savings account. Derek pushing documents back across the counter, pointing to the door. May 22nd. A young black couple in wedding attire, attempting to access their joint account. Derek calling security. June 8th. Mrs. Henrietta Cole, her lavender dress bright against the marble, holding a check. Derek examining it with theatrical suspicion, shaking his head. The woman's face collapsing into resignation. The lobby was silent except for the soft audio from the footage. Derek's voice, polite but cold, finding reasons to deny, delay, or dismiss. Every clip showed the same pattern. Black and brown faces meeting institutional resistance disguised as procedure. Maya watched the employees watching the screen. Some looked shocked. Others looked uncomfortable, as if recognizing moments they'd witnessed but chosen not to question. A few looked guilty. Linda stepped forward, her voice tight. "This is out of context. You can't judge months of work based on cherry-picked clips." "Cherry-picked?" Elizabeth's voice was sharp. "This is 15% of his customer interactions. We have 47 similar clips. Should I keep playing?" Derek found his voice, desperation replacing defensiveness. I followed protocol. Every denial had documentation. If the system approved them, that's not my fault. The system didn't approve anything, Maya interrupted. You did. You chose who to scrutinize, who to trust, who belonged in this bank and who didn't. She turned to address the entire lobby. Employees, customers, the phone still recording everything. Sterling Trust was built on one principle. Everyone deserves dignity. That's not marketing. It's not a slogan. It's a promise. And this man broke it every single day. Derek's face hardened, his earlier fear transforming into defensive anger. I don't have to listen to this. I have a union representative. Call them, Maya said flatly. They'll arrive in time for your termination hearing. The words landed like a verdict. Derek's mouth opened and closed, searching for arguments that wouldn't come. Linda stepped between them, her voice taking on a pleading quality that made Maya's stomach turn. Maya, think about the optics. Firing someone on the spot in public based on allegations. This isn't how we do things. Due process, HR protocols. Due process? Maya's voice rose for the first time, echoing off marble and glass. Where was due process when he threw me out this morning? Where were HR protocols when Mrs. Cole was humiliated? Her phone buzzed again. She glanced down. Another message. Then another. The notifications were accelerating, a digital avalanche of lost trust. But this message was different. A video link from an unknown number tagged, "This happened to me, too." Thought I was alone. Not anymore. Maya clicked the link. A shaky phone video appeared. Derek at his counter last month, refusing service to a young black man in a business suit. The video had 12,000 views. In the past hour, she looked up at Derek, at Linda, at the cameras recording everything. This wasn't just about her anymore. The story was bigger than one incident, one humiliation. It was about every person who'd been dismissed, denied, and told they didn't belong. And they were all watching now. Maya stood in the bank's private conference room. The door closed against the chaos of the lobby. Through the window she could see employees clustered in worried groups, customers demanding to speak with management, phones everywhere recording the collapse. Her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Each notification was another account closure, another angry message, another broken promise. Sterling Trust's social media accounts were being flooded with stories. People who'd experienced Derek's behavior and stayed silent, assuming they were isolated incidents. He made me feel like a criminal for depositing my paycheck, asked for my birth certificate to open a savings account. I'm 45 years old. Watched him serve 3 white customers before acknowledging me. I waited 30 minutes. The stories multiplied, each one a small violence that had seemed too minor to report, too subjective to prove. Until now, when they formed a pattern too obvious to ignore. Maya's hands shook as she scrolled through the messages. She'd built this institution to be different, to be the alternative her father never had. And somehow, while she focused on growth and expansion, it had become exactly what she'd sworn to replace. Elizabeth entered quietly, closing the door behind her. "The board is calling for an emergency meeting. They want you to make a statement." "Saying what?" Maya's voice was hollow. "That I didn't know. That I'm sorry. That won't bring back the people we hurt." "You didn't hurt anyone," Elizabeth said firmly. "Derek did. Linda enabled him. You're fixing it, am I?" Maya gestured at her phone, at the flood of notifications that wouldn't stop. "People are leaving. Not just this branch, Sterling Trust entirely. By tomorrow this will be national news. Bank CEO kicked out of own branch is the perfect viral story." She sat down heavily, the emerald blazer that had seemed so professional this morning now feeling like a costume. "My father died believing I'd built something that mattered. Something that would protect people like him." "You did," Elizabeth said. "One bad hire doesn't erase 10 years of good work." "It's not one bad hire." Maya looked up, meeting her friend's eyes. "It's the system that hired him, the supervisor who protected him, the culture that prioritized numbers over people. I created that culture, Elizabeth. I trusted metrics and forgot to trust instinct." Her phone buzzed again. This time it was Jennifer, her assistant. "Mrs. Cole is on line 1. She says she'll only speak to you." Maya picked up the desk phone with trembling hands, pressing the blinking light. "Mrs. Cole." "I saw the video." The elderly woman's voice was steady, stronger than this morning. "The one you're dealing with at the branch. I'm not the only one, am I?" "No," Maya said quietly. "You're not." Silence stretched across the line. Maya waited, barely breathing. "My husband died 3 years ago," Mrs. Cole finally said. "He worked 40 years as a postal carrier. Saved every penny. That money, it's his legacy. I was taking it out because I didn't trust anywhere anymore. Didn't trust anyone to see me as a person." "I understand," Maya whispered. "Do you?" Mrs. Cole's voice wasn't angry, just tired. "I've lived 73 years being invisible or threatening, depending on who's looking. Your bank was supposed to be different. You were supposed to be different." The words cut deeper than any angry accusation could have. Maya gripped the phone, searching for something adequate to say. "Nothing came. I'm not closing my accounts," Mrs. Cole said. "Not yet. But I'm watching. We're all watching. Don't make us regret giving you another chance." The line went dead. Maya sat in silence, the phone still pressed to her ear, listening to dial tone. Through the window, Derek stood in the lobby arguing with security. Linda hovered nearby, still trying to manage the situation, to smooth it over and return to normal. But normal was over. The truth was out, spreading through phones and social media, forcing a reckoning that couldn't be managed or postponed. Maya stood, straightening her blazer. Her reflection in the window looked exhausted, but beneath the exhaustion something else stirred. Her father's voice. "Anger is energy. Channel it." She wasn't just Maya Sterling, humiliated CEO. She was everyone who'd been dismissed, denied, and told they didn't belong. And she had the power to make this right. She opened the conference room door and walked back into the lobby. The cameras were still recording. Good. Let them see this. Maya stood in the center of the lobby, surrounded by cameras, employees, and the wreckage of her morning. Elizabeth handed her the tablet with 47 clips of discrimination, documented in high definition. "Derek Hoffman," Maya said, her voice carrying across marble and silence. "You're terminated effective immediately. Security will escort you from the premises." Derek's face went purple. "You can't do this. I have rights." "Yes," Maya interrupted. "The same rights you denied to Mrs. Cole, to James Washington, to Lucia Ramirez, and 44 other customers whose trust you violated." She turned to Linda Martinez. "I are suspended pending a full investigation. Every account closure, every complaint, every denial under your supervision will be reviewed." Linda's professional composure shattered. "This is insane. You're destroying careers over allegations, over evidence," Elizabeth corrected, holding up the tablet. 47 documented incidents, 15 formal complaints you dismissed, 7 closed accounts in the past 4 hours. This isn't allegation, it's pattern. Maya pulled out her phone, opening the text from the unknown number, the video of Derek discriminating against another customer. She held it up for the lobby to see. This was posted an hour ago. It already has 20,000 views. She scrolled through comments, reading aloud. "This happened to me, too. I thought I was alone. Finally, someone believes us." She looked at the employees gathered around, some still holding their phones, still recording. "How many of you saw something? How many witnessed Derek's behavior and said nothing?" Uncomfortable silence. Averted eyes. Then slowly a young teller raised her hand. I mentioned it to Linda last month. She said Derek was just being thorough." Another employee spoke up, an older black man from new accounts. "I tried to help customers he turned away. He reported me to HR for undermining management authority." More voices joined, stories spilling out like water through cracks in a dam. The truth had been there all along, visible to everyone except the people with power to stop it. Maya felt something shift, from damage control to transformation. This wasn't just about firing Derek. It was about rebuilding trust from the foundation up. "Here's what happens next," she announced. "Every customer interaction for the past 6 months will be reviewed. Anyone who experienced discrimination will be contacted personally by me with a formal apology. Closed accounts will be reopened with fee waivers and enhanced interest rates." She looked directly at the phones recording her. Sterling Trust was built on a promise. Everyone deserves dignity. We failed that promise. But failure isn't final unless we refuse to fix it. Elizabeth stepped forward with a document. "We're also implementing new protocols. Quarterly bias audits, anonymous reporting systems, customer advocate positions, and mandatory training that actually addresses the problem instead of checking boxes." Maya nodded. "Every employee, every manager, every executive, including me, will participate. No exceptions." Derek, flanked by security, made one last desperate attempt. "This is discrimination. You're firing me because you violated the civil rights of 47 customers," Maya said coldly. "Because you created a hostile environment. Because you betrayed everything this institution stands for. Take him out." Security escorted Derek toward the door. As he passed Mrs. Henrietta Cole, who'd arrived during Maya's speech, he wouldn't meet her eyes. The elderly woman watched him go, then turned to Maya. "Pretty words. Let's see if they become action." "They will," Maya promised. "Starting now." Mrs. Cole studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Then I'll keep my money where it is. But I'm watching." Maya pulled out her business card, writing her personal cell number on the back. "Call me directly, any time. If anything like this happens again, I want to know immediately." Mrs. Cole took the card, examining it with the same careful attention Derek had given her check. Then she tucked it into her purse. "I'll hold you to that." As Mrs. Cole left, Maya turned to face the remaining employees. Some looked relieved. Others looked worried, uncertain about their own roles in the system that had enabled Derek. "I know some of you are scared," Maya said. "Worried about your jobs, about what comes next. Here's the truth. If you've been doing your job with integrity, treating customers with dignity, you have nothing to fear. But if you've looked away, made excuses, or participated in what Derek was doing, now's your chance to come forward, to be part of the solution instead of the problem." She let that sink in, watching faces carefully. "My office door is open. To employees, to customers, to anyone who needs to be heard. Sterling Trust belongs to the community it serves, and I'm going to make sure we deserve that trust." Elizabeth's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, then showed Maya the screen. A news alert. The video of Maya being kicked out had gone viral, but so had her response. Hashtags were forming. Sterling Trust Accountability. CEO responds. Action, not words. The narrative was shifting. Not fast enough to undo the damage, but enough to show that change was possible. Maya took a breath, feeling something she hadn't felt since this morning. Clarity. The path forward was difficult, but it was clear. Rebuild trust. Honor promises. Create systems that protected people instead of excluding them. Her father's legacy demanded nothing less. 3 days later, Maya stood before a packed town hall meeting in Sterling Trust's largest conference room. 200 people filled every chair, lined the walls, spilled into the hallway. Customers, employees, community leaders, and media all crowded together, united by a single question. Would Sterling Trust actually change, or was this damage control disguised as accountability? Maya had spent 72 hours reviewing every customer interaction from the downtown branch. 47 cases of clear discrimination, hundreds more of questionable judgment, and a culture that had rewarded Derek's behavior with promotions and praise. Now, with cameras broadcasting live and reporters taking notes, Maya faced the consequence of her own success. Growth without oversight, metrics without meaning, trust without verification. "Thank you for coming," she began, her voice steady despite exhaustion. "I know many of you are here because you don't trust me." "That's fair. I haven't earned it." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. People leaned forward, surprised by her bluntness. 3 days ago, I was kicked out of my own bank. I was humiliated, dismissed, and treated like a criminal. Maya paused, making eye contact with faces throughout the room. But I had resources, power, a legal team. I could fight back. Most of you don't have those advantages. She gestured to the screen behind her, where the now viral video played on repeat. This video has 16 million views. People across the country are watching a black woman be ejected from her own business. Some think it's ironic. Some think it's justice. I think it's a symptom of something much deeper. Maya advanced the presentation. Photos appeared. Mrs. Cole, James Washington, Lucia Ramirez, the Johnson couple. Real people with real faces, not statistics. These are 47 of the customers Derek Hoffman discriminated against. Each one was denied service, delayed or dismissed based on appearance rather than account history or credit worthiness. She clicked again. Documents filled the screen. Loan denials, complaint forms, security footage, timestamps. This is the evidence. Not allegations. Not misunderstandings. Documented systematic discrimination that occurred while I was focused on expansion and growth. A hand shot up in the audience. A middle-aged black man in the third row. "Why should we believe this will change?" "You hired him. You promoted the supervisor who protected him. The system is working exactly as designed." Maya didn't flinch. "You're right. The system did work as designed. And the design was flawed. I prioritized metrics over humanity. I trusted protocols over people. I failed." The admission hung in the air. Reporters typed furiously. Camera lenses focused tighter. "Here's what I'm doing to fix it," Maya continued, advancing to the next slide. "First, every affected customer receives a formal written apology, direct compensation for harm, and fee-free banking for 2 years." She clicked again. "Second, comprehensive bias audit of all 15 branches. Independent reviewers, not my staff, examining every customer interaction from the past 2 years." Click. Third, new reporting structure. Customer advocates in every branch with direct access to my office, bypassing management entirely. Click. Fourth, revised training focusing on recognizing and addressing implicit bias. Mandatory for all employees, including executives, including me. Another hand rose, an elderly Latina woman near the front. "I was one of Derek's customers. He made me prove my identity 3 times to access my own account. What happens to people like him? They just get fired and move to another bank? No, Maya said firmly. Derek Hoffman has been reported to state banking regulators and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. His actions are being investigated for civil rights violations. If charges are filed, Sterling Trust will cooperate fully. She pulled up the final slide, a pledge written in clear language without legal jargon. This is Sterling Trust's commitment to you, signed by me, notarized and legally binding. If we fail to meet these standards, customers can file complaints directly with our board of directors and have grounds for breach of contract. Mrs. Henrietta Cole stood slowly from her seat near the back. The room quieted as she made her way to the microphone set up for audience questions. Her lavender dress was the same one she'd worn the day Derek denied her service. "I'm 73 years old," Mrs. Cole said, her voice carrying despite her age. "I've been dismissed my whole life, by banks, by stores, by people who couldn't see past my skin color." She looked directly at Maya. "When your bank opened, I thought maybe things were different. I was wrong." Maya held her gaze, refusing to look away from the accountability Mrs. Cole deserved. "But 3 days ago," Mrs. Cole continued, "I watched you stand in that lobby and admit you failed, not make excuses, not blame others, admit failure." She paused, letting silence fill the room. "That's rare, especially from people with power." Maya felt her throat tighten but kept her expression steady. "I'm not saying I trust you yet," Mrs. Cole said. "Trust is earned over time through action, but I'm saying I'm willing to watch, to give you a chance to prove words become deeds." She looked around the room at other faces, black, brown, white, young, old, united by shared experience of institutional failure. "We all are. Don't waste it." The room erupted in applause, not for Maya but for Mrs. Cole's truth-telling. Maya joined the applause, honoring the courage it took to give a second chance after being betrayed by the first. When the room quieted, Maya spoke one more time. "I can't promise perfection. I can promise accountability. I can promise that every complaint will be investigated, that every voice will be heard, that the promise Sterling Trust was built on, dignity for everyone, will be enforced from the teller counter to the executive office." She looked at her father's photo, which she'd placed on the podium. His face smiled back, patient and knowing. "My father taught me that respect is earned through action, not words. So I'm not asking you to trust me today. I'm asking you to watch what I do tomorrow, and the day after and the day after that. Judge me by those actions." The town hall ended not with resolution but with possibility. The chance that an institution could fail, acknowledge that failure and choose to be better. Whether Sterling Trust succeeded would be determined by months and years of daily choices, not one dramatic speech. But at least now the path forward was clear. And everyone was watching. 6 months later, Maya stood in the renovated downtown branch. The marble floors gleamed under new lighting designed to feel warmer, more welcoming. Where Derek's counter had stood, there was now an open workspace where customer advocates sat, available without appointment or hierarchy. Mrs. Cole sat across from one of those advocates, reviewing investment options for her grandchildren's education fund. She caught Maya's eye and nodded. Not friendship, but acknowledgement, progress. The independent audit had revealed uncomfortable truths. Derek wasn't an isolated case. 3 other branches showed similar patterns, less extreme but present. Maya had fired 2 managers, suspended 4 more, and restructured her entire executive team. Linda Martinez had resigned rather than face investigation. Her supervisor, who'd ignored escalated complaints, had been demoted. The culture Maya thought she'd built had been a fiction, pretty words covering structural rot, rebuilding hurt. Sterling Trust lost 12% of its accounts in the first month. Stock value dropped. Competitors gleefully advertised stability and experience as virtues. The board had pressed Maya to soften her approach, to move on quietly. She'd refused. And slowly, gradually, something shifted. New customers arrived. people who'd read about the reforms and wanted to support a bank trying to do better. Closed accounts began reopening as Maya personally called each customer, not to convince them to return, but to hear their stories and learn from their pain. The bias training wasn't a checkbox exercise. It was monthly sessions where employees shared experiences, confronted assumptions, and practiced intervention. Some employees quit rather than participate. Maya considered that a feature, not a bug. The Customer Advocate Program had fielded 83 complaints in 6 months. 83 opportunities to catch problems before they became patterns. Each complaint triggered review, conversation, and, when necessary, consequences. Maya walked through the branch, observing interactions. A young teller helped an elderly Vietnamese man navigate online banking, patiently explaining each step in a mix of English and translation app. A loan officer worked with a black couple on mortgage pre-approval. Her questions focused on income and plans, not suspicion and barriers. Small moments, daily choices. The unglamorous work of transformation. Maya's phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Cole. "My granddaughter just got approved for her student loan." "Thank you." Maya smiled, tucking the phone away. Thank you wasn't for her. It was for the system working as it should have from the beginning. At her desk that evening, Maya looked at her father's photograph. 10 years since the grand opening. 10 years of building, failing, and rebuilding. For people like us, she whispered to his smile. Still working on it. The work would never be finished. Systems required constant maintenance, vigilance, willingness to fail and try again. But at least now, Sterling Trust was trying honestly, visibly. Accountably, Maya pulled up her calendar. Tomorrow's schedule included branch visits, advocate check-ins, and a meeting with the NAACP to discuss community banking initiatives. The work of redemption was measured in spreadsheets and conversations, policy updates and daily choices to see people as human. She closed her laptop, ready for tomorrow's next opportunity to prove that words could become action, that promises could be kept. That failure didn't have to be final. Her emerald blazer hung on the office door, cleaned and pressed, ready for the next surprise visit, the next inspection, the next chance to walk through her own doors and be seen for exactly who she was. Maya Sterling, CEO, daughter, guardian of a promise that demanded daily renewal. She turned off the lights and headed home, the city spreading below in constellations of possibility and unfinished work. The viral video still circulated, 16 million views of a black CEO being ejected from her own bank. But now it came with context. The aftermath, the reforms, the accountability that followed humiliation. Students studied it in business ethics classes. Activists used it as evidence that systems could change. Skeptics pointed to it as proof that even good intentions couldn't overcome structural bias. Maya saw it as something simpler, a mirror. Every organization, every leader, every system eventually faces the moment when intention meets reality, when promises collide with action. The measure of integrity isn't avoiding that moment. It's what happens next. Some institutions deny. Some deflect. Some bury the evidence and move on quietly. Maya had chosen visibility, chosen accountability, chosen the harder path of transformation over the easier path of image management. Sterling Trust wasn't perfect. It never would be. But it was better. Measurably, documentably better. Not because of one dramatic change, but because of 10,000 small ones. Daily choices by employees who understood that their work was dignity, not just transactions. Mrs. Cole was right. Trust is earned through time and action. 6 months wasn't enough. 6 years might not be enough. But every day that Sterling Trust chose accountability over comfort, chose people over metrics, chose humanity over efficiency, that was progress. Maya thought of her father often. His hands smoothing his janitor's uniform, preparing to ask for a loan he'd never receive. His quiet acceptance that some doors were closed before you even approached them. She'd built Sterling Trust to open those doors, and when she discovered they'd been closing again under her watch, she'd torn them off their hinges entirely. That was the lesson. Not that systems would always work, but that when they failed, when they betrayed the promises they were built on, someone with power had to stand in the gap and say, "This ends. This changes. This will be better." The work was never finished. Transformation wasn't an event. It was a commitment renewed daily, tested constantly, validated only by the voices of people who'd been harmed and chose to stay, to watch, to give one more chance. Above Maya's desk, her father's photograph smiled with infinite patience. He'd taught her that anger was energy, that dignity was power. That respect was earned through action. He'd also taught her something else, that failure was inevitable. But what you did with failure defined who you really were. Maya had failed spectacularly, publicly, virally. And then she'd done the work of transformation, not for headlines or redemption, but because the promise she'd made to her father's memory demanded nothing less for people like us. Not perfect, not finished, but better than yesterday, and committed to being better tomorrow. That was the only metric that mattered, the only promise worth keeping. The rest was just noise.